And good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. And with that, let's get into our Kids Corner.
Every street, every house, and every friendly face. But one day, Timmy's parents told him they were moving to a new town. Timmy's heart sank. The thought of leaving his home, his friends, and everything he knew filled him with fear. The next day, Timmy went for a walk with Mrs. Willow, the kind neighbor who always had a smile for him. She noticed Timmy's sad face and asked what was wrong. Timmy told her about the move and how scared he was to leave everything behind. Mrs. Willow smiled and said, "Change can be scary, Timmy, but it can also be wonderful. Every new place has something special to offer." On the day of the move, Timmy felt nervous, but he remembered Mrs. Willow's words. As they arrived at their new home, Timmy noticed something. The new neighborhood had big trees, friendly neighbors, and even a park nearby. It wasn't so different after all. Timmy took a deep breath, smiled, and thought, maybe change isn't so scary after all. Change can be scary, but it also brings new opportunities and experiences. Just like Timmy, sometimes we need to take a deep breath, embrace the change, and find the good in it. You might discover that the new can be just as wonderful as the old.
Yeah. And today is going to bring a lot of change. So with that, let's get into our morning prayer and honoring God with our body. God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears and help me listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please protect my reproductive organs. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet as I walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And yes, it is April 1st. And I know there are some of you out there that have wonderful senses of humor. I don't say it like that because, yes, I like to laugh, but I'm a very analytical person. So April Fool's does not always work for me. It doesn't. And people come up with some, as they call them, whoppers when it comes to, you know, April Fool's Day. So there are a lot of things that might happen today that you have to be a little bit aware of. And there are some exciting things that are happening today, like the hearing on the 14th Amendment that will be attended by Donald Trump, apparently. We'll see. I don't know, because logistics are what they are. And a lot of times when the president of the United States is going anywhere, no matter who it is, um, there are a lot of logistics involved in who can and cannot be in the room. There's extra vetting, there's Secret Service. So there are a lot of moving parts. So I don't know if he'll be attending remotely, that might be a last minute change, or if he will end up attending in person. So we'll see. And I think it's very important to acknowledge, like, wow, he really wants to see this through. You know, again, we're going to get into it and get into that coverage in a moment, but let's get into some more of our other news. I wanted to just get us updated on the conflict happening in Iran.
Okay, continuing to get updates on the war in the Middle East. President Trump, by the way, going to be giving a primetime address to the nation tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. No doubt that will be a major event, and it's something that we're going to have to track closely to see what direction this war is headed in the immediate future. We did, by the way, get this in from Caroline Levitt saying that presidents will talk to the nation. It's going to be something that we plan to carry here live in full as soon as it begins. Something we have not been able to play on air yet tonight is Secretary Rubio. He posted a video on social media earlier today. Let's watch.
Many Americans are asking, why did the United States have to attack Iran now? Well, let me explain. Iran wants to have nuclear weapons. Of that, there is zero doubt. If what they truly wanted, which is what they claim, is nuclear energy, well, they could have nuclear energy like all the other countries in the world have it. And that is, you import the fuel and you build reactors above ground. That's not what Iran has done. They build their reactors and their facilities deep in mountains, away from the public glare. And they want to enrich that material. The same equipment that they could use to enrich material for energy, they could use to quickly enrich it to weapons grade. So it is clear that they've been offered every opportunity to have a nuclear program that allows them to have energy, not weapons, and every single time they have turned it down. But why the attack now? Well, what was Iran trying to do? Iran was trying to build a conventional shield, in essence, have so many missiles, have so many drones that no one could attack them, and they were well on their way. We were on the verge of an Iran that had so many missiles and so many drones that no one could do anything about their nuclear weapons program in the future. That was an intolerable risk. Under no circumstances can a country run by radical Shia clerics with an apocalyptic vision of the future ever possess nuclear weapons. And under no circumstances can they be allowed to hide and protect that program and their ambitions behind a shield of missiles and drones that no one can do anything about. This was our last best chance to eliminate that conventional threat, that conventional shield that they were trying to build, and the president made the right decision to wipe it out now. That is the goal of this operation, to destroy their conventional missiles and their drone program so they can't hide behind it and finally have to deal with the world seriously about never, ever having nuclear weapons.
The White House sending that statement out earlier today, a live look at the White House, the time in the nation's capital, about 9:10 in the nation's capital. So what we're going to do next is we're going to discuss the latest on the Middle East. As I mentioned, major update tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. President Trump going to be addressing the nation on the direction of the war in the Middle East. We do have here standing by David Daoud. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He's here with us to discuss the latest on Iran and the latest on Lebanon and Hezbollah as well. David, I got to start by asking about this major address tomorrow. When you hear that the president is going to be addressing the nation in prime time, you typically assume that we're going to hear something big. What does your gut tell you? What direction do we think the White House is going to be announcing this conflict is going in tomorrow night?
Well, it's always a pleasure to be on. Well, given the direction of President Trump's statements recently, including today where he said that operations could be concluded in Iran within 2 to 3 weeks, if I'm recalling correctly, I think it's going to be something in that vein, kind of a not quite a mission accomplished speech with all the negative connotations that we have of that. From Iraq, but basically that we've accomplished the goal. We've degraded the military assets, both conventional and non-conventional, of Iran's that we intended to, and that perhaps there's been some kind of breakthrough when it comes to the negotiations that have supposedly been ongoing between the United States and Iran. I mean, there could be a surprise. It's always possible. President Trump likes to kind of come out of left field sometimes. It's not the first time he's kind of entertained negotiations and then gone towards, escalation. But my sense is that based on his statements, the direction of his statements over the past few weeks, especially if we go back to when he landed in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, I mean, he's basically even said the regime has been changed just because there's been a change of leadership. So he's effectively saying regime change has been accomplished. And I imagine he may say something similar about the military assets that we were pursuing.
So from your perspective, it doesn't feel quite as likely that we might see the president addressing the nation tomorrow because he's going to announce that perhaps the U.S. wants to put boots on the ground or perhaps look at military action or extra military action on some of those islands around the Strait of Hormuz. There's also the question about going in, boots on the ground, to ensure that they can get rid of any materials that could lead to a nuclear-armed Iran. So as things stand here tonight, it feels like it's unlikely that the war might go in that direction.
Look, I mean, President Trump, he came in on a promise of no forever wars, as they were called in the Middle East, no new wars. He has midterms coming up. This is all going to impact his bottom line, especially since the Straits of Hormuz closure is impacting oil prices. I think, if there is some kind of boots on the ground operation, I could see something that's more limited, perhaps a special forces incursion. That could be something that he announces has already occurred after the fact. Perhaps we sent in troops who took out some of Iran's uranium, enriched uranium, and destroyed it, rather than announcing a full-on ground invasion. I simply don't see that as I always like to say I hate to play the role of prophet here, especially with someone who likes to be as unpredictable as President Trump. But based on everything, I just don't see it going in that direction. The most I could see is something similar to what U.S. forces did in Venezuela by extracting President Maduro and his wife, but in this case, Iran's enriched uranium.
Today, we've been hearing President Trump talking about the Strait of Hormuz. He's saying that it's on other nations to open the strait, telling them that they need to go get their own oil. What countries is he directing that message to, more than likely?
I'd say the European nations, NATO. Our NATO allies obviously benefit from the Strait of Hormuz remaining open. The Gulf states, this puts pressure on them as well. So I think it's more another call by President Trump to collective action and to, if we go back to even his first campaign, it was all about America not shouldering the burden alone, and other NATO allies, other countries that fall under the American orbit, likewise shouldering the burden and not just, basking in American protection. So I think that message is more directed to our partners who benefit from the Straits of Hormuz remaining open, but are depending on U.S. military action primarily to keep it open.
Are there any signs that any of the Gulf states have an appetite to join the fight to protect the strait or to secure the strait?
Not so far. They're taking a lot of hits from the Iranians. Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait have now announced several Hezbollah cells that have been uncovered and dismantled that are helping the Iranians presumably hit targets within those countries. But they're not, I don't think they're interested in an escalation with Iran. If we even go back to the first Gulf War, the reliance was primarily on the United States to do the work. And I imagine it would be the same now with the Gulf states. Again, they're not happy with what Iran is doing on their soil, but I think their approach is to get this to end rather than to engage in military action that would lead to escalation on their soil.
We've been tracking northern Israel and southern Lebanon closely. The time just passed 4:15 in the morning, Israel Standard Time. Israel's defense minister is saying that a buffer zone will be set up inside southern Lebanon and that Israel will keep security control over part of the territory even after the end of the current war against Hezbollah. David, I know that you focus a lot of research on Lebanon. What is a buffer zone in this case, and what will likely happen within that zone?
Well, it's my bread and butter, even more so than Iran, which is tangential to my work. I see a revival of the South Lebanon security zone. Unfortunately, this was foreseeable from the outset, given that for the past 15 months, prior to the renewal of the conflict, now 16 months, right, since November 27, 2024, the Lebanese government has said a lot of things, some of which have been great, like prescribing Hezbollah's military activity on March 2nd, last February, removing the cover that Beirut had so long given to Hezbollah as a resistance organization, as the national resistance organ. But there has been very little concrete follow through, and this has allowed Hezbollah to regenerate and to remain south of the Litani River, maintain a presence there, even after the Lebanese armed forces had declared on January 8th of 2026 that they had effectively ejected Hezbollah from the area. So I think the Israelis are going to move in for some time up to the Litani River, perhaps for a series of months. I don't see that occupation remaining indefinitely. Further duration necessary to clear Hezbollah out of the area to finish the job that the LAF purported to have done. And after that, falling to a more digestible and defensible swath of Lebanese territory that is nevertheless deeper into Lebanon than the current string of fortifications that they have along the Blue Line. And if they've learned the lessons of 1985 to 2000, where they did occupy a security zone in South Lebanon, the Israelis are going to make their presence there far more mobile, far more nimble, far more aggressive. They're not going to have fixtures or fixed positions or fixed fortresses, effectively fixed bases that Hezbollah can rely on guerrilla tactics to target at whim, and they're not going to rely on incompetent locals like the SLA, the South Lebanon Army, who were supposed to help Israel police this territory, but ended up needing protection themselves from the Israelis. So the security zone ended up, rather than protecting the Galilee, protecting this incompetent and brutal ally, the SLA. So if the Israelis have learned the lesson, again, they're going to use the security zone not just as a buffer zone, but as a launching point for deeper raids into Hezbollah's strongholds in Lebanon, perhaps in the Bekaa, perhaps in Dahieh, concurrently with air power, standoff firepower, perhaps shifting their policing activities that we see along the blue line, the de facto border between Israel and Lebanon, from that frontier up to the Litani River to prevent Hezbollah or to complicate Hezbollah's attempts to return to the southern Litani area. So a revival of the security zone, but again, if they've learned the lessons of previous mistakes in Lebanon, the Israelis are going to make this look very different. And it's going to be, again, not just a buffer zone, but a launching point for the continual degradation of Hezbollah.
In recent weeks, regular viewers of Live Now have tuned in around this time of night, and we've seen the IDF striking Hezbollah targets on this very camera. This is a camera overlooking an area of Beirut. My understanding is that they've likely and largely been aiming for Hezbollah infrastructure, in some cases command centers, things of that nature. Can you compare and contrast, David, the types of targets that the IDF is aiming at in this area of Beirut versus what they might be looking at on the southern border of Lebanon?
Well, I think it's I wouldn't say entirely identical, but it's relatively identical. They haven't targeted senior leadership yet. There's been a threat on Secretary General Naim Qassem since the outset of the renewal of the conflict. He remains alive. So I see a focus in both cases on nerve centers, IRGC assets. That's more in Dahieh, but not exclusively in the area of Beirut that you're mentioning. Not exclusively there, mid-level commanders, battalion commanders, and infrastructure that's used for the production of drones or rockets. And again, that's not exclusive to Dahieh, but there's more of a focus there on weapon storage facilities. But again, these facilities also have a presence in the southern Litani area today. If I recall correctly, there were also strikes on areas that were targeted during the 15 months of the ceasefire that have been used as lots for excavation and reconstruction equipment, so construction equipment, because Hezbollah has been using that, according to the Israelis, to rebuild their military presence, to rebuild their assets. And those strikes are ongoing. So they're relatively, for the time being, relatively identical in nature. I do see, though, if the Israelis decide to escalate the war overall, then you're going to see much more of a distinction. Dahieh, the southern area of Beirut that you're highlighting, is Hezbollah's nerve center. It's its command and control center. So we could see more strikes on senior figures, perhaps other attempts to take out Hezbollah's media and propaganda apparatuses, like An-Nur, their radio, like Al-Manar, their directly owned, wholly owned television station. So we could start to see a more, intensified campaign and distinction between the targets that are targeted northwards versus those in the south, which are going to remain, I would say, more mid-level to junior commanders.
How does the Lebanese government feel about the idea of an Israeli buffer zone in southern Lebanon?
I would presume not happy about it at all. The Lebanese government, after all, is tasked with maintaining the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon, and this would be a technical violation of that. At the same time, Lebanon has concurrent duties to ensure that its territory, as baseline obligations under international law, is not used to either threaten the safety or independence or territorial integrity of another country, including Israel, irrespective of whether Lebanon recognizes Israel's existence or has diplomatic relations with it or not. And these obligations, these baseline international obligations, have been reaffirmed over the past 70 years, from the 1949 Israel-Lebanon ceasefire agreement all the way up to the November 2024 ceasefire agreement, where Lebanon's obligation to ensure that no military or paramilitary activity was emanated from its territory towards Israel, that no paramilitary group or non-state actor could use Lebanese territory to attack Israel. And November 2024 ceasefire required Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah. This hasn't happened. And so if a country does not fulfill this obligation under international law, is either unwilling or unable to do so, as we see with the Lebanese government, we've seen kind of both iterations of unwilling and unable at different times, it gives the right to the victim state to take the necessary and proportionate measures to accomplish that goal and to protect its own territorial integrity and sovereignty from the threat emanating from the opposing party. So in this case, right, does that translate into an Israeli right to establish a South Lebanon security zone? Is that the necessary and proportionate action? I think that's a debatable question. But Israel has a right to act in self-defense, and if the Lebanese government wants that to stop, they have but to act to disarm Hezbollah.
David, appreciate the time tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I wanted to just give that perspective, right, of what is happening. It's more than one thing going on. And I also wanted to bring up from all sides the average gas price hit $4 per gallon for the first time since 2022. And yes, it is going to affect everything. And once you affect the gas, right, the transportation, that affects everything. So everything that's high now is going to be higher. We've seen the $7 bags of potato chips. I'm telling you, it's going to make people like, okay, what can we make at home? Can we get some potatoes? And can we make our own potato chips? Right? We're going to stop going out. But it's a trickle down effect, because when people have less disposable income, fast food restaurants are going to suffer first, right? You are, because not everybody is going to be able to purchase your food products, right? Grocery stores, you are going to see a decline. You're going to have to start putting a lot of stuff on sale because people just aren't going to be able to afford to buy it. Now, the people that you think would be able to afford to buy it can't buy it because, again, SNAP benefits, they can't buy junk food. So they can't buy chips, they can't buy candy, they can't buy ice cream, they can't buy soda. So all of these $10 a case and $11 a case sodas, good luck with that. Good luck. It will sit there. I'm telling you, human beings will figure it out. They will get a soda machine and figure it out. Sorry. I mean, maybe I'm speaking for people I shouldn't be speaking for, but I'm just saying that we will figure it out. Now, the average price of a gallon of regular gasoline in America, now this is the average, broke $4. So that means somewhere somebody's paying close to $10. It's got to be. Now, the figure is up over $1 from February 28th when the U.S. and Israel began their military operations against Iran. It's the highest gas prices have been since 2022, when prices reached over $5 per gallon. The price of premium gas is currently hitting around $4.90, while diesel is around $5.45. Okay, so for context, the price hike comes as the Strait of Hormuz remains closed to most vessels, and the Trump administration and Iran have struggled to reach a diplomatic solution for opening it. On March 11th, the International Emergency Agency, IEA, said its member countries would release 400 million barrels of oil from their emergency stock to try to bring down oil prices. On March 13th, the U.S. struck over 90 targets of Karag Island, Iran's main oil processing hub. Now, on March 20th, the U.S. lifted sanctions on 140 million barrels of Iranian oil that were already loaded on vessels at sea. Now, on March 29th, President Trump said he wants to seize Iranian oil, though he previously said the U.S. does not need it. So which is it? Right? I'm looking forward to his press conference that he will be having tonight at 9:00 Eastern Standard Time. So previous administration rhetoric. On March 5th, Trump said he was not concerned about rising gas prices. Previously, his administration touted when the AAA average gas price fell below $3 per gallon, saying it had kept one of its campaign promises. Now, this is how the media covered it. Many outlets from the left and center mentioned Trump in headlines, framing the rise as a political liability for his administration. Several outlets from the right also did, but less prominently and less frequently. Yeah, because this is something that everybody's like, this is a bad look. Do we really want to put this out? Yeah, you do. You know why? Because the people need the truth. We're tired of being lied to. I think for once, when things are bad, just say they're bad and that you are doing your best to fix it, but stop trying to hide and making it like, well, we look great all the time. No, we don't. Stop that. We don't. Right now, it is a hot mess. It is a dumpster fire on 100-degree day, trash on the street. If anybody's ever walked down the streets of New York, you know what I'm talking about. It just stinks. It's just stinky. Like that's where we're at right now. And we need to just, admit it and deal with it. Stop running from it. What did you think was going to happen when you went into Iran? That it was just going to be like, oh, yeah, we'll just be in and out. Psh, they ain't nothing. Yes, they are. There's something. There's something to reckon with and deal with. But the question is, how are we going about it? And how will this play out? And is it rough at any time when you're in a conflict? Absolutely. Stop calling it a war, because if it was a war, everybody would have to be in prison. Now, are we getting close to the time where Congress is going to have to come in here and decisions are going to have to be made? You cannot just stay in an endless conflict. Now, I know with Iraq and Afghanistan, it was like that. It wasn't a war. It was a it was a ongoing conflict until we got out of Afghanistan, which was horrible the way it was done. It could have been done better, but it didn't happen, and it's horrible, and we're still dealing with it today. It's stuff like that we have to learn from our mistakes in our U.S. government. So I wanted to play a video, and this is from Mother Miriam, and she highlights a message to Benjamin Netanyahu, and I thought this was very appropriate to bring up.
Prime Minister, is that you are far from God. You are far from the Judaism that God gave the Jewish people, because it was fulfilled in the Passover lamb when the Lord Jesus Christ, whose name means salvation, who is the Savior of the world, took on your sins and mine and the whole world and died the death that was meant for us. He's the Lamb of God who took away the sins of the world, your sins, my sins. And he died that everyone would be saved. But only those, it's a free gift. A gift can't be earned. It's not deserved. But it has to be received. And unless you humble yourself, Netanyahu, that's what I was missing, Benjamin Netanyahu, unless you and all the Jews who don't yet know Christ humble yourself and repent before the Lamb of God, who is the Messiah, who is God himself, there's no hope for you and there's no eternity for you. What you are fighting now in the land of Israel has nothing to do with God. Nothing to do with God, because you are turned from him as a nation. Will he protect you? I don't know. I'm not a prophet. But you have no confidence of God's protection because you are turned from him. Your people are turned from him. And you're not even living the life that he asked you to live, to be kind to the stranger. Let those glean from the land, because you were once lost yourself. And now you're trying to kill the people who are in the land of Israel, who are not Jewish. You are committing genocide in Gaza, in Lebanon. You are turned from God, and I don't know that God will protect you. We pray for you not to win the war, but to be converted and turn to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who sent his son to die for the sins that separated you from God, and who rose from the dead to give life to whoever will humble himself and believe. You said the other day, Mr. Netanyahu, that Jesus was a weakling. that he was this, that he was that. What you omitted is that he's God. Because it doesn't matter what you think Attila the Hun should be, what you think a warrior should be. Doesn't matter. That's your opinion. But if you knew that he was more than that he was God come to earth, who took on flesh for us, if you knew he was God, you would despise your own thoughts and opinion. You would despise, you wouldn't dare to call him a weakling. He was no weakling on that cross. He gave his own life. Jesus said, no one takes my life. I give it up of myself. I came to die for you. He's no weakling. And no matter what you think, he is God. Unless you submit to him, you will be lost forever. I didn't plan to say this, but that goes for every single Jew who has not yet recognized their Messiah. There's no sacrificial system because Jesus fulfilled the sacrificial system. There's no way for you to please God. The law is not in effect. The temple's been destroyed. There's no sacrifice for you remaining. The only sacrifice that God accepts is the sacrifice of his Son, the true Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world, who was born of a virgin from the house of David, from the family of Judah, from Jacob, from Isaac, from Abraham. Our Lord is the second person of the Blessed Trinity, who is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who took out of love for us, fallen creatures, took on flesh and blood, and became man while never giving up his godhood, became man through the Virgin Mary, just as Isaiah chapter 7 said he would. A virgin will conceive and bear a child, and his name will be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And some people argue it doesn't say virgin, it says Alma, a maiden. So what? A young maiden will have a child, and his name will be called Emmanuel, God with us. And Jesus came, God with us, Emmanuel, and we put him to death. But because he's God, he's not a dead hero. He's not a martyr. He didn't stay dead. He rose from the dead and was vindicated as Son of God by his resurrection from the dead to give life to all who would put their trust in him. We don't know that we have tomorrow. Today is the day of salvation. Benjamin Netanyahu and all those in Israel with him, you need to fall on your knees. You need to beg God's forgiveness. You need to beg him to show you that Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, is truly the Messiah, came out of love for you, died for your sins, and rose again to give you life. Nothing else matters. Oh, I don't know what else to say to you. Took on your...
Yeah, and that is our sister, Mother Miriam. And you can find her on YouTube. And she does, at different times, she'll do commentary maybe on political events going on. But I really wanted to play that because I don't think anybody's said what she's saying. Right? Because as much as the people of Israel are demanding everybody be on their side and everybody champion their cause, do you even know why you're there? Do you even have any respect for God and his people? Not just the people of Israel, but the people around you. Right? Because how can you say you love God and hate your brother? Your brother is the person that's right there in front of you. Now, is everybody going to be your brother and sister in return? No. But that's not their place, right? It's supposed to be you who loves people. If that's what you're talking about, and if that's what you're called to do, that's what makes this kind of confusing, because you want to have a holy war with all these interesting boundaries that don't align with God at all. And I think that's what she was really getting back to. You want the blessings of God, but you don't want to obey God at all. Judaism is very interesting to me because I go, yeah, we don't recognize the New Testament. Okay, so you don't recognize Jesus. But Jesus was talked about in the Old Testament to come to the fulfillment. They talk about the lamb, whether you won't have to sacrifice anymore. And this is talked about in the Old Testament. So where is this lamb? How do you get a fulfillment of the law? Oh, you're just going to deny the fulfillment of the law, even though it's spoken about in your own Torah. Yeah, y'all are interesting. Interesting. Yeah. And with that, let's move on to some other news. Now, this is Harris Faulkner. She's from Fox News. Now, this was something I wanted to play yesterday, but I'm playing it today. Now, it is in regards to the shutdown, right? And just kind of where we're at. I'm not going to play the whole video, but I did want to play some of it just to still give us a perspective of where some people are at with the shutdown.
For more than 6 weeks now, Democrats have refused to fund our Department of Homeland Security despite the pain and suffering it is causing millions of Americans, not just those who are in the government and in parts of DHS, including the Coast Guard, by the way, but all of us who want to travel, anybody who wants to move around the country. Their first job is to protect us. That's the first job of the government, and they are among the tip of the spear. Military, of course, too. But Homeland Security is in charge of the homeland. And by the way, the Border Patrol and ICE, all funded. Big, beautiful bill took care of that. So what are exactly the Democrats fighting for here? They want to defund ICE. They can't do that. It's already done. Some relief, though, for TSA officers comes in the form of the President of the United States, who is not on vacation right now, unlike the Senate. They are finally getting paid after the President's order, executive order, kicks in today. Border Czar Tom Homan says this won't change things at airports for now.
TSA agents have left the job because they got to, whether it's driving Ubers or finding other jobs so they can feed their families and pay their rent. So I'm hoping with this change that President Trump put in place with Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, that more will come back to work. Until then, ICER will remain in airports to take those jobs to secure the airport and check identification and check exit lanes.
Meanwhile, back to the Democrats continuing to block funding for DHS. Now the U.S. Senate is out on vacation. As I said, in just the last hour, it failed to pass the funding bill in a scaled back pro forma session. So now they just go home for a long time. Republicans say Democrats' demands to restrict immigration custom enforcement agents has backfired, and Democrats getting some heat now, even from the liberal legacy media.
We let people know, number one, that we want to fully fund TSA. We could get rid of these lines at the airports immediately, but we also made clear that we're going to demand reforms of a lawless ICE operation.
I guess what's confusing here is you have fought and blocked the funding for the Department of Homeland Security because you object, as you just outlined, to what ICE has been doing, and you wanted to force changes. And yet, the only thing that has been assured throughout all of this is that ICE already has the money.
Wow. So do you think any of those lawmakers are shocked that we know that in the media, that we actually can read? Congressional correspondent Bill Malugin is on Capitol Hill. Bill.
Harris, good morning to you. You just mentioned it. This pro forma session we had in the Senate this morning was really, really quick. I mean, they gavelled in, and then seconds later, they gavelled out and adjourned until Thursday. Republicans did not introduce that House-passed DHS funding bill. They would have had to do it via unanimous consent, which essentially means that one single senator could kill it. Senator Chris Coons of Delaware was a Democrat senator there on hand. He was ready to kill it, and that's why Republicans say they didn't introduce it. So the bottom line is this DHS shutdown will continue, at least in the short term. The Senate and the House still on recess. In the meantime, we can confirm at least some TSA agents started getting paid today via President Trump's executive order. Our team at Atlanta Airport talked to a handful of TSA agents there who confirmed they did get a paycheck today, though one said his check was short about 30 hours that he had worked. Border Czar Tom Homan says ICE will stay at airports until things start running smoothly again.
if less TS agents come back, that means we'll keep more ICE agents there. The president has been clear. He wants to secure those airports, especially, as I said earlier, in an increased threat posture. We need to secure those airports. ICE is there to help our brothers and sisters in TSA.
Some Democrats, though, believe that President Trump is breaking the law by going around Congress to pay TSA.
You believe that he is violating the law in this interpretation that the White House says they have?
Well, it's not that I believe it, it's that I know it, right? I mean, if there's one power that Congress has, it is the power of the purse. Now, this president has, of course, consistently.
Now, what he did was he pulled from a discretionary fund, and DHS falls under the executive branch. They do not fall under the legislative branch. Yes, the legislative branch does hold the power of the purse. They do hold the power of funding. He's not pulling any funding that he doesn't have allowed to him. Plain and simple, short and sweet. But they would rather hurt the American people. For people that are here illegally, by the way, that's why we're here. We're not here because there's just this disagreement. We are here because the Democratic Party, and it is, and they've said it 10 toes down, they support illegal immigration. And they want these illegals to be able to be here. They don't want them deported. They do not want ICE deporting them. Even though there's orders of deportation, they want to go back on laws that they've already put in place. You put in the warrantless laws. You did that, Congress. This was done in 2002, implemented in 2003. If you wanted to change it, change the law. Just like Tom Homan keeps saying, change the law if you want to change. But you won't. You will have these fights and you will harm American people for illegals. That's why we are here right now. This is not philosophical. They really are doing this. They really are doing this.
And universally said that he, in fact, has that power. But any American that went through fourth grade civics, no, they should be paid. They should have never been held hostage.
And Harris Border Czar Tom Homan points out that by blocking ICE and CBP funding, Democrats are actually blocking some of the very reforms that they've been demanding. That would include funding for body cameras. We'll send it back to you.
Again, we can read. I don't know if they think that about us, Bill. Thank you. Congresswoman Kat Cammack, a Republican of the great state of Florida, member of the Energy and Commerce and Agricultural Committees. Great to see you today. Let's just get to the brass tacks. And please don't be offended by this, but y'all have all of our money. And the fact that Democrats have now gotten to the point where they are just dysfunctional, they can't pick us first, any of that, is it time to start cutting paychecks now?
Absolutely. It needs to start with the senators. They should not be collecting a paycheck, which members of Congress, both the House and Senate, get paid on a monthly basis, and their check is deposited in the last few days of the month. They right now are collecting a paycheck while our hardworking men of Homeland Security from FEMA, Coast Guard, DHS, collectively, and of course TSA, they're not getting paid. Now, to your point, Harris, yes, we do have a literacy crisis in this country, but for Pete's sakes, I wish that the Democrats in the Senate would stop treating us all like we are morons. We can read. And if they were to read the bill that they sent over to us, they wanted to withhold the paychecks of ICE, of CBP, Homeland Security investigations, which investigate sex crimes against children. These folks are out to play politics with people's lives, and it's disgusting. They should not be getting paid. Certainly not while there are other people who are sleeping in their cars and missing paychecks and really scrambling for everything that they can do to survive.
Well, look, we can't blame them. I mean, very few people could live this long without a full paycheck, let alone no paycheck at all. We can't blame them for wanting to do that. And by the way, it's the Coast Guard. It's more people in DHS that they are turning their backs on. The Democrats have way too much delusional free time, and now they're taking a vacation.
Absolutely. You can see I am here at Jack's Airport behind me. You see the planes. I have spoken with folks here, and I have heard stories, things like my mother is now having to live with us and she needs real care. We had to pull her out of assisted living because we couldn't afford it. People have been sleeping in their car. They aren't getting paid. They're going to food banks. Here at Jacksonville, the TSA agents have had food banks coming in to help with the daily bills and needs of our families that are on the line here. And so it's just a slap in the face, not just to the workers, but really to all Americans, especially in light of this heightened security threat that we're experiencing. Homeland Security is shut down, and it's because the Senate collectively chose chaos instead of competence. This is 100% on the Senate. They need to get back, do their dang jobs, and cancel their vacations.
Look,
now this is also, let's just say, so we got two things going on. We've got the funding for DHS, but we also have the Save America Act that the Democrats are also fighting against. And they don't want it passed because they do not want people to have to go through an extra step to confirm that they can legally vote in federal elections. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to the state and county and city elections, but the federal elections definitely. Can people probably still cheat? Yeah, that's why they're saying they don't want ICE at voting polls. What are you talking about? But that's what Democrats are talking about. That's what they're demanding. This is about more than just money. They have 100% full stop said they no longer support the American people. They only support illegal immigration. They only support illegal activity because that's what they're supporting. You cannot tell me that you support law and order. You don't. They're fighting against Homeland Security. The Democrats, if any of them remain in office, if you are going to send these people back to Washington, that's your fault. That's all I'm saying. If you give them your vote, that's your fault. End of discussion. I have a plan. This is my plan. My plan is this. I've got the redemption party, right? We are looking for servants of the people, not politicians. What if we were able to turn the tables? Just 50 senators. Not 100, because we only have 100 of them. Just 50. One in each state. Become a redemptionist. And actually be able to stop the gridlock. Because, see, the Republicans and the Democrats at that point, they would have to figure out what they were going to do for the American people. Because, see, as a redemption party, we already know what we're going to do for the American people. Because it's already rooted in the party. We know what we stand for. Fiscal responsibility, limiting federal government to empower local government, one community at a time. That's it. That's the mission. Let's go. 50. That's all I'm asking for. I'm asking for 50 people from every state to run for U.S. Senate so we no longer get these bottlenecks. So we can actually get something done because the parties have left us. They have abandoned us. Republicans and Democrats, and I work with Republicans, but I also work with Democrats and libertarians and independents. But you cannot tell me that they have not abandoned us. They have. Everybody's in their pockets. They are more concerned about their ideological differences than they are about the American people. These people are still getting paid, getting ready to go on vacation, and they do not care if the work doesn't get done. You see, they're going to eat. They're going to be warm. They're going to be safe. So they don't care about the American people. At this point, in my opinion, they're at that let them eat cake moment. Yeah. So if you are interested in running to be a servant of the people, not a politician, check out USARedemptionParty.com.
The president stepped in. Those paychecks begin to flow, we're told, perhaps as early as today. Borders are Tom Homan on Democrats' push to ban ICE agents from wearing masks. That part, and guess who's helped saving the day? ICE. Watch.
The same people in the Democratic Congress that want ICE to take off the mask are the same people who say ICE is going to shoot people inside airports. If you want ICE to take the mask off, the threat level has to decrease. It's up 8,000% increase in threats against ICE officers. And that's because a lot of the rhetoric coming from the Hill. Stop calling ICE Nazis and racist.
What's your reaction to that?
I mean, it's just disgusting. You can't imagine the fear that an ICE agent has, not just for himself and his team, but his family. Because the reason that these folks, these radical progressive extremists, want them to take the masks off is so that they can identify them and target them. That is the only reason why they're making this demand. Now, we all saw that ICE in an airport here just a few days ago saved the life of a 1-year-old little boy who was choking. That is what they sign up for, to save lives, to protect, to serve. And they're doing that in communities across this country. And again, the radical progressives, they don't want them. They want chaos. They want sanctuary cities. They are willing to defund law enforcement instead of defend Americans. Well, and it's about time that we as Americans start pushing back on that.
Congresswoman, they're showing us who they all are. And for anybody who had a doubt, and I spent some time across states touring with one of my children to see college campuses, and I talked to a lot of viewers who were all stuck inside airports, particularly Atlanta Hartsfield. And they were talking about how they don't feel seen as voters, many of them Democrat voters. So that was interesting. Look, I mentioned I had some personal experience traveling. Atlanta, by the way, finally getting some order inside there. That place, those lines were unbelievable. And I noticed no one complaining about ICE, who was on the job. And they are fortifying and going through the processing situation now. And just talking with them, what I realized is people just want law and order, and they certainly want it when they're boarding planes. So now, as of today, they're doing more than just watching. They're part of that data processing and checking as we get on to airports and go through security. This is huge, and it deflates the Democrats' argument about ICE. Just ironically, they created the disaster, and ICE is part of what's cleaning it up.
Absolutely. You know, I have been in the airport recently. Heck, I'm in one now. And I can tell you, standing in the lines, which every member of Congress should, they should absolutely be in the line and understand exactly what every American has to go through. I have watched as ICE has helped maintain order. They've helped move things along. I first and foremost, I would recommend sign up for a touchless ID. It helps move things along faster. But the thing that I saw when I was actually getting patted down the other day coming through the screening line, I wish she would have bought me dinner first, but she did. She gave me a pat down.
Oh, my.
I asked her, I said, how are you doing? And she said, you know, it's frustrating, but we're all in this together. We understand that this has nothing to do with us. This is all about politics. And that's what everyday Americans, even those middle-of-the-road Democrats, like you said, Harris, that's what they're sick and tired of.
Well, look, voters are certainly letting them know. I mean, one woman told me she's just been calling her local. She said, I didn't even really know that I could do that to get through to anybody on the line. And I said, well, they have to take your calls. They're worried about you now and your vote.
They do. And when you call, no, exactly. And this is my pro tip to everyone who should be calling. And please call your representative, call your 2 senators. When you call and express your opinion, make sure you request a response, because they have to respond to you. If you don't say, I want a response, they can just log it as an opinion and ignore you. So make sure you say, I want a response, because then they actually have to call you back or email you back.
Kat Kamek with the pro tip on a Monday. Congresswoman, thank you very much.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are represented by Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock here in the great state of Georgia. And so I already know that they voted no. They vote no on everything. If a Democrat did not put it up, they vote no. And their reason is usually it starts out with, well, Donald Trump. I mean, it's disgusting. I am looking forward to Jon Ossoff being removed in the fall at this point by anyone. I don't care if it's a libertarian, Republican, independent. He needs to go because he's done nothing for this state. Same with Raphael Warnock. You're useless, both of you. You are completely useless. We have one of the largest international airports in the United States. We should never be going through what we're going through right now. You don't care about the people here. You care about illegal immigration. And you've proven it time and time again. Your party is disgusting. Democratic Party, like leadership, I need you to wake up. We get it. We get it that you hate the American people. You've proven it time and time again. You are in the tank for illegal immigration. That is who you are. That is what you do. That is what you've done. And I'm going to prove that on the other side of this break. So, you guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. The energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And thank you so much to everybody who's joining me in the comment section. Sincerely Lawless, good morning to you as well. And thank you so much, Spud, for always joining me in the morning. Good morning to you. I really do appreciate you. And you said, Happy Black Media Appreciation Month. Wow, that's a lot. Cool, I'll take it. I will take it. Even if it's a April Fool's joke, I will still take it because that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And Alian says Israel is the one true problem over there. We need to stop helping them. A lot of people have said that. And here's my thing. When we have allies, you know what? We need to stand back and let the allies do what they're doing, right? And when they go, oh, you need to help us. Do we really need to help you? Because if you started an argument, you need to see the argument through. It is not our responsibility to get into the argument with you. And that's kind of what I feel what happened with Iran. You know, and at this juncture, I am praying that God will see us through this. Because here's the deal. If God's hand isn't on it, there's going to be massive confusion everywhere. And that's what I see. And that's why I see God's hand isn't on it. Now, will God hear you and give you a reprieve? If you ask for it, yeah. But if you don't, and you continue to forge forward as man typically does, not humbling himself before God to say, I need your help. I need your guidance in this because I don't want anybody else to get hurt or injured. I do not want to harm your people because they're not mine. Yeah. That's when God will intervene. But is anybody humbling themselves? That's the question. Right. Now, I wanted to get into some of the topics trending on X. So let me get to it first and then bring up screen. So one was DeSantis signs Missy's law calls for judges impeachment. So on March 31st, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed Missy's law, which requires judges to hold defendants convicted of certain violent and sexual crimes without bond before sentencing, closing a pretrial loophole exposed in Missy's case. The law honors 5-year-old Melissa Missy Mogel, killed in 2025 by her stepfather, Daniel Spencer, who was free on bond after a child exploitation conviction, despite prosecutors' warnings to Judge Tiffany Baker Carper. Descendants and Attorney General James Othmeyer urged the House to impeach the judge for her decision, calling it a dereliction of duty, while Missy's family welcomed the reform amid opposition from defense lawyers defending judicial discretion. This baby's dead. Wow. Wow. She was killed by somebody in her own house, but somebody who should have never been outside. Thank you, Mr. DeSantis. Maybe people will start, locking people up and keeping people locked up that are not well. Okay. They should not be integrated with us back in society. One of the next top stories is Minnesota man gets 13 months in the $3 million child meal fraud. So Ali, 40, from St. Paul, pleaded guilty in 2022 to using his nonprofit for fake claims of 1.3 million meals, pocketing $129,000 from over $3 million in federal funds. On March 30th, Judge Nancy Brassel sentenced him to 1 year and 1 day, far below guidelines. Despite his cooperation and $92,500 restitution paid, part of the massive Feeding Our Future scandal that stole $250 million overall, the ruling fueled online outrage over perceived leniency compared to others like leader Amy Brock, who got 13 years terms. Yeah, like Amy, they threw the book at her, but she's the Caucasian lady in this conversation. And she got 13 years. But she facilitated a lot of what was happening. So her role was a little bit different from his, so I can see why she got 13 years. But at the same time, I want deportation if it's allowed. I want you in prison, and I don't want you just deported. I want you sent to El Salvador. That's where I want you sent to. Never to return to the United States again, because you can't. You just can't. Last story trending on X, Pelosi warns Democrats of Republican vote tech tampering ahead of 2026. Why are you putting that talking point out there, Nancy? What's going on, man? Really? Now it's the Republicans' fault? It's all of your fault. All of you. Just saying. So former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi cautioned that Republicans could interfere with election technology, creating false vote tallies in 2026 midterms set for November 3rd. The 58-second clip from her interview drew sharp backlash from conservatives who highlighted Democratic claims of secure elections in 2020. Which is it, Democrats? Are they secure or the unsecure? Which is it? Because, see, you guys started that whole election denier thing. So what are we doing? Just insane. And recent incidents like a Florida election volunteer's arrest for stealing equipment before a closed special election. Critics called it projection, while Republicans pushed measures like the SAVE Act for voter ID and citizenship proof opposed by Democrats amid ongoing debates over election integrity. So, ma'am, if you're so afraid of these machines, what about the SAVE Act and paper ballots? But you're not going to say that. You know why? Because you're a liar and you don't care. And all you politicians do is politic. And I think the American people, we're kind of over it. All right. Now let's get into our next article.
Shauna Kalafi, a live look at the White House this evening. Tomorrow, the U.S. Supreme Court is set to hear arguments in a Trump versus Barbara. It's a case challenging President Trump's executive order aimed at limiting birthright citizenship. And now President Trump says he plans to attend that hearing in person. We have this from the Associated Press's Meg Kennard saying Trump will attend Wednesday's Supreme Court hearing on birthright citizenship in an unprecedented move for a sitting president. And we want to play out that clip of President Trump announcing that he'll be at the Supreme Court tomorrow. He said this during an event at the White House today.
The Supreme Court tomorrow is going to hear arguments about your executive order trying to get rid of birthright citizenship.
And I'm going.
You're going to go to the Supreme Court
I think
tomorrow?
so. I do believe
and just sit there.
Because I have listened to this argument for so long, and this is not about Chinese billionaires or billionaires from other countries who all of a sudden have 75 children or 59 children in one case or 10 children becoming American citizens. This was about slaves. And if you take a look, slaves, we're talking about slaves from the Civil War. And if you take a look at when it was filed, all of this legislation, all of this, everything having to do with birthright citizenship, it was at the end of the Civil War. The reason was it had to do with the babies of slaves and the protection of the babies of slaves. It didn't have to do with the protection of multi-millionaires and billionaires wanting to have their children get an American citizenship. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's been so badly handled by legal people over the years. If you look at the original birthright citizenship papers, they all happened right after the Civil War. The reason was it had to do with the babies of slaves. And hopefully it's going to say, because our country is being scammed. We're getting all of these people. They're selling the rights to them. People are making a big living, getting hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars from bringing people in and saying, congratulations, your whole family is going to be a citizen of the United States of America. That's not what it was for. It wasn't for billionaires bringing people in or family in. It was for the children of slaves. And what you really have to do, and I don't think the lawyers talk about it as much, look at when the Civil War ended and look at the date of when this was enacted.
That was the announcement from President Trump saying he will be at that Supreme Court hearing tomorrow. And the White House has since confirmed that it is on their schedule for tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. President Trump attending in person as the Supreme Court hears arguments in a case challenging his executive order aimed at limiting birthright citizenship. And for more on this, we want to bring in Adam Winkler, professor of law at UCLA. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
So first, we want to break down the executive order and what will be argued tomorrow. So this case really has the potential to reshape the constitutional guarantee of birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, the lawyers for President Trump will be defending that executive order that seeks to limit who qualifies for birthright citizenship. So can you break down exactly what that executive order entails and what parts of it are being challenged in this case?
Sure. So Trump issued an executive order right after he was inaugurated in January 2025, trying to eliminate birthright citizenship. The idea that anyone born in this country is automatically a citizen of the country, barring some exceptional circumstances. Under the executive order, the Trump administration announced that from now on, babies born in the United States will not automatically be entitled to citizenship if their parents are in this country either temporarily or illegally. And that would make a very vast shift in how we've understood birthright citizenship for well over 100 years.
And this, as we saw.
I'm sorry. The reason why I'm laughing is because if you actually read the 14th Amendment, it does eliminate on its face people that are not naturalized citizens or legal of this country. The reason why we have it is because there was a case called Dred Scott, which would not recognize emancipated slaves literally as human beings and citizens of this country, even though we have a First Amendment in the Constitution that says all men are created equal. That's what it says. But we had to go full. We had to add civil rights to it because people viewed slaves literally as animals and property, and that they had no right to exist on the soil. So they had to create a civil rights law after the Emancipation Proclamation to make people whole. It wasn't for everybody. They did not include the Indians. It was only for those that were harmed of chattel slavery and their descendants. It was only extended to those who were naturalized citizens because at the time, those senators said, we need to make sure and ensure that our borders are protected and that we are not invaded. I'm paraphrasing, but it's in there. They did not want our country overrun by the term just soil, so that anybody here could just pop a squat and have a baby, which is what they're doing now because it was misinterpreted. Now, here's the thing. If what they're saying is true, let's just take a step back. What they're saying is true, just soil, anybody born here. Why do we even have the 14th Amendment? There's no need for it. So you cannot have one argument without having the other. And the jurisdiction thereof, whatever you have allegiance to and whatever jurisdiction that you are under of that country, that is where your child resides as well, not here. Just because your child's born on the soil does not make them an automatic citizen. It can't. That 14th Amendment was written for me. Yeah, I'm going to take personal ownership of it because there's a lot of people like me that are descendants of chattel slavery. Yeah, on my third great grandmother's marriage certificate, it says a freeman. They had to put that on there to prove that they were free. In a country that says all men are created equal, yeah, it hurts my heart. But it's proof that in my lineage, that 14th Amendment was written for me. So as I have children here on this soil, they are citizens of this country. It wasn't written for everybody. Get it out of your head. You don't have ownership to this country. It is a privilege to be an American citizen. It is not a right. Period. And for anybody to demand, well, my child, your child is under the jurisdiction that you are. And if you are not a naturalized citizen of this country and you're here illegally, you need to be deported with your child, no benefits. And as far as I'm concerned, pay restitution back to this country from your country. So yeah, Honduras, anybody that came from your country that we send money to, because yeah, we have a whole list of countries that we send money to, by the way. How about we take it out your paycheck and send your people back to you and revoke your citizenship, revoke your passport. You can never touch American soil again. See, that's where I'm at. Get off the soil because you don't belong here. You've made it difficult for everybody. You've made it so there is no rule of law. You have brought nothing but death and destruction on this soil, and it ends. It ends with us, period. It ends. We're tired of it. But let's continue.
From this tweet here. This is an unprecedented move for a sitting president. According to the Supreme Court's Historical Society, no sitting U.S. president has ever attended oral arguments at the Supreme Court. So what is really the significance of President Trump being at that hearing tomorrow, especially as he's been critical of some of those Supreme Court justices in the past? So could his presence affect this hearing in any way or even influence the outcome? And why is it that no other presidents have attended a Supreme Court hearing?
Yes, as far as anyone knows, there's no record of a sitting president ever before going to the Supreme Court and hearing oral argument, even though they're open to the public. And so this is a historic first. And, it could be that President Trump is just really curious and wants to see the Supreme Court in action on one of his signature pieces of policymaking. It could be that he's trying to intimidate the justices with his presence. I don't think it's going to have a big impact on the Supreme Court at all. The justices really take pride in their independence. Even the justices who agree with most of his agenda will not likely rule in his favor or temper their questions in order to please him.
And talking a little bit about some of the comments that we heard from President Trump as he was announcing he would be attending this hearing, talking about the executive order in the past. Trump's main justifications for making this executive order are claims that people have abused birthright citizenship in the past. Is there ever any evidence of that we've seen in the past? And have there been other efforts to limit birthright citizenship?
Yeah, well, we are seeing a debate among the parties to this case. The Trump administration claims that birth tourism, if you will, people coming to this country so that they can give birth to a child and that child will have citizenship, is out of control. The challengers claim that the numbers are actually really very marginal. Very few people actually do it for that reason. People come to this country to get jobs and to try to earn a living and bring a better life for their families. So there's real debate about that and what that means. But for the Supreme Court, it shouldn't really have a big difference how you think about birthright citizenship and birth tourism. That's kind of a policy issue. And what's before the Supreme Court is really a constitutional interpretation issue. What does the Constitution mean when it says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States? I don't think the policy questions about birth tourism are going to play any real role in the views of any of the Supreme Court justices here.
And what else do you think we can expect from these oral arguments tomorrow? They're set to get started around 10 a.m. Eastern. Aside from President Trump attending, what can you expect to hear during those arguments?
Well, we are going to hear a very vigorous debate over what does the Constitution mean, in particular the 14th Amendment and its citizenship clause. It says, like I said, that persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens if they're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Most of the debate in this case is going to center on that language. What does that mean, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? The challengers say, look, this is very ordinary language. Every first-year law student in the first weeks of law school learns that jurisdiction means power of. If you're subject to the jurisdiction of a court, that means a court can issue orders upon you and can require you to appear in court. So it's subject to the jurisdiction means you're under the power of that governmental entity. The Trump administration says that's not what the Constitution means, that the Constitution, when it says subject to the jurisdiction, means that not only are you born here, but that you have allegiance to this country as if you were a citizen. And someone who has citizenship in another country does not have allegiance to the United States, and thus they are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Well, I should note that if the Trump administration is right, it's going to really completely change immigration in this country and undermine the status of existing children who have citizenship, who are born to parents who are here either temporarily or illegally. It's going to raise a whole bunch of really important legal questions if the Supreme Court goes back on what is a 100-year history of saying that the challenger's understanding of subject to the jurisdiction is the right one.
And that is the last thing I want to ask you here. What does this mean for the millions of U.S.-born children of non-citizen parents if the court does rule in favor of President Trump's executive order?
Well, first and foremost, it means that children going forward, the children born in the United States to undocumented parents or those temporarily here on a student or a work visa, will not be recognized as citizens. And that could, create a whole bunch of questions about whether people who are subject to that rule, can they get social security cards? Can they get driver's license? Will they no longer be able to work in states that require that someone be a citizen and that employers check citizenship before they give someone a job offer? It could mean that children are denied public services like Medicaid or SNAP payments, and could mean that children of undocumented immigrants, if they're not citizens, might be denied access even to public schools. So it will really have a pretty profound effect on our economy and our nation, what the Supreme Court does in this case.
And we will definitely.
Yeah, it's going to have a profound. God, it's going to be profound. It's always been profound. It just kind of grinds my gears. And this person, this gentleman, I could tell he was a progressive from the onset. I was like, sir, really? Y'all, I got to bring up the 14th Amendment. I got to read it. I got to after nonsense. That ridiculous word salad. Oh, my goodness. I have to slow myself down. I'm telling you, my blood pressure just gets out of control. So let's read it, shall we? So all persons born or naturalized. I want to stop right there. That's conditional. It's not subjective. It's conditional. So you have to be born or naturalized, not people that are here illegally. Doesn't apply to you. We have over 300 points of entry. People are coming here for a better life. Then do it the right way. We got over 300 points of entry, legal entry, but you've chosen to come here illegally. And the reason why you did is because it's allowed. It's not that it's a legal pathway. It's not. All of this nonsense has been allowed, born or naturalized. The born doesn't apply to anybody else but those of chattel slavery because it was written for us. Because without it, my children are not citizens of this country. Is everybody starting to get it? Does everybody understand that? If you are not a descendant of chattel slavery, the born part doesn't apply to you. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to people that are Caucasian. And you're like, what? Huh? No, because it wasn't written for them. It wasn't written for those descendants. It was written for those of chattel slavery because they were not recognized as human beings that had a civil right to be here in the country. I need for people to just think it through and stop being convoluted. And then on top of that, you want to be like, oh, but all people. No, I don't feel sorry for none of y'all. And if you have to pack your bags, lose your citizenship, and get off the soil now. That's where I'm at. Oh, yeah, you about to get all this energy. All of it. Get out. Because the one thing I'm not going to tolerate is people disrespecting the country that I live in. You can go. You can go. You first. Okay? So all persons born applies to those of chattel slavery. Nobody else. Or naturalized, meaning if you came here after the Civil War from another country, we'll use Ellis Island as an example. You came through a legal port of entry and you were legally recognized and you were legally naturalized. So anybody that came from that lineage, and we'll just say that lineage, right? Because we're just using examples right now. Everybody from your pathway, this applies to you, right? So anybody that's naturalized, this applies to you. somebody who came here maybe 10 years ago and they got naturalized, their descendants, that naturalized part, that applies to them. It doesn't apply to people that are here illegally because it doesn't say that. That's super easy. All the wonderful legal minds out there. This is so above my pay grade. Y'all need, you know what? Where's my check? Where's my money for sorting this out? For making this real easy. Like, this is a whole, like, I'm dragging out the conversation because I'm a little emotional about it. But seriously, for decades, y'all been this abusive to those of chattel slavery? Because see, without this amendment, what are we doing? That means anybody that touches the soil gets to be a citizen here. That's not what this says. It has never been what it says. And people have misinterpreted it, abused it, and have not cared. Why am I shocked and surprised? I'm not. Okay. And subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And subject, not or subject, and subject. So if you were born chattel slavery, naturalized in the United States, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, means you're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States if you are of chattel slavery and naturalized, not if you're here illegally. If you're illegal, this doesn't even apply to you. You're not even in the conversation. Now, you want to bring up this Chinese immigrant, or I'm sorry, Japanese immigrant, who his parents were here illegally. They were not recognized as, I want to say they only gave special privilege to those who were like ambassadors and different things like that, right? That their children would be allowed. His parents were here illegally. So he was illegal. He wasn't naturalized. No one was naturalized. So it doesn't apply to him. So I don't know how they came up with saying, yeah, he's a citizen. No, there is no just soil for people that are not naturalized, for people that are not of chattel slavery. The just soil applies to us. Because those are the only two people recognized in this amendment. That's it. Stop that. It says no state, Chicago, well, Illinois, New York, California. Let's start with y'all. No, okay, let me finish. Are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. Okay, so no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Okay, citizen. So you can't make any law, make or enforce any law which shall abridge privileges or immunities. So that means you cannot harm those of chattel slavery. You cannot harm naturalized citizens. Okay. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. You know how they had to write it like that because, again, those who were emancipated were looked at like animals. They weren't looked at like humans. Why would we need a civil right in a country that says all men are created equal? I'm going to continue to say that till it's branded in somebody's brain who gets it. Yeah. Stop it. Stop. Stop defecating on the Constitution and wanting all the privileges that it affords. Get off the soil. That's all I'm saying. Now I'm going to get into this next article because apparently there is a representative demanding reparations for illegal immigrants.
Of Americans across the country, regardless of political party, know that immigrants from all over the world, Somalia, India, wherever they're from, Latin America, Africa, that immigrants have built this country and make this country what it is today.
Ma'am, enslaved Black Americans built this country, and we're not immigrants. Black Americans are foundational in building this country and shaping what it became. That forced slavery created wealth through the industries that power the early U.S. economy and global trade. The U.S. economy didn't exist until it was built by free Black American labor. The country didn't exist. I'm talking about from Wall Street to physically building key landmarks like the White House and the U.S. Capitol. Beyond that, the wealth generated from slavery flowed into major banks, insurance companies, and financial systems. Everyone knows it wasn't Somalians or Red Dot Indians like Pramila here. But this scammer is trying to tell us her people built the U.S. all the way from India. She's been running around saying this for some years now, including stomping for reparations. She's asking for the U.S. to pay reparations, not to the descendants of Black American slaves. She's saying this country should pay reparations to illegal immigrants that broke into this country.
And we are going to have some form of reparation.
Wait a damn minute. Wait a damn.
Yeah, she said we need to pay them.
And then we also need offensive actions around prosecutions. We need real accountability, because at the end of the day, the people that have been inflicting this harm need to be prosecuted. They need to be brought before us, and they need to be held account for the trauma that they have created. And we are going to have some form of...
I agree with her. And I want her up on that list, because you are inflicting harm. Your votes, the things that you supported. Oh, we're about to get into this 2021 appropriations bill real quick after all this.
Of reparation for the kids and the families that have been traumatized through all of this. You talked about how there's no supports for people even once they're released. We need to make sure that we are funding that kind of work to continue to provide relief.
Yeah, this lentil bean head lady just said Democrats need to take over in the midterm election to pay reparations to illegal immigrants. Not Black Americans that's been voting for them 92%. They want all the Blacks to line up and put them in office so they can give reparations to illegals. Look at them. They're not trying to do anything to help us. They're loyal bloc. Instead, they said, forget Blacks. We're going to help these other people. Listen here, Patel. My people went through slavery, Jim Crow, and all kinds of stuff, and you never once supported reparations for us. But now you think y'all deserve reparations for illegally coming into the country and facing the legal consequences? You really think y'all about to skip all over us and ignore us? You gotta be out of your mind.
And we are going to have some form of reparation.
And listen, this Pramila Jail Paul lady, this is not her first time saying this. She's been fighting for reparations for at least the last 7 years for illegals since she's been in office. She's supposed to be the first woman from India to serve in the House of Representatives. And not once did she ever support reparations for Black Americans. But the caucus she's a part of, the Asian caucus, they use the Black caucus every single time to vote for something for their people and other immigrants. They all team up with the Do Nothing Congressional Black Caucus because they have more votes. And that's how they get specific set-asides for their own people, by using the cosplaying Black Caucus. Because all of them in the caucus are pretending to be us, or they're pretending to care about us. All of them. The Black Americans and the Black immigrants. None of them care about Black people. But they're holding positions in the Black Caucus, not to fight for Blacks, but to assist everybody else with their agenda. Look at her talking to another cosplayer, Joy Reid, telling her this all the way back in 2019. It's 2026 now.
Everything about this family separation policy, this zero humanity policy, was so wrong. And I really don't know, first of all, how we fix what we have done, but then also how we make reparations. I mean, these kids are traumatized, and the parents are traumatized. And we know from psychologists that that is real trauma, lasting trauma.
And you see how Joy Reid agreed with her. Funny how that same Joy Reid was against Black Americans getting reparations all them years and was calling Black people bots, making herself an enemy, but now she's cosplaying once again. Them people fired her from that network, then she came crawling on YouTube, now flipping the script, pretending to be grassroots just to co-opt the movement. Exactly how Jamal Bryant did it with that Target situation, It doesn't matter what the cause is. These people have the same behavior. Jamal Bryant is not on your side. Joy Reid is not on your side. Don Sweet Lemonade is not on your side. This one right here, Pramila, she is not on your side. She'll sit up there next to the Somalian Omar lady and lie saying Somali people built this country and her people from India.
Somalia, India, immigrants have built this country.
She'll come lying saying they built this country and now they need reparations, but never once supported reparations for Black Americans. In fact, they're against it.
This Representative Jayapal Democrat is saying that if they win the mid-election, they need to give reparations to the children and families traumatized by ICE. Not the Black Americans that have been traumatized for over the last 450, 500 years in this country, or the ones that have been holding down the Democratic Party. No. When I tell you as Black Americans, you better stop taking your eyes off the prize, because you continue to make Democrats and everyone else out here think that we good. Black Americans is good, y'all. We need to focus on a whole new group of people here that have not even bought into this, paid into the system like we have. This is so disrespectful. Number one, who's going to pay for them reparations? Because it damn sure wouldn't be Black Americans paying reparations to people who came here hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years after.
Let me pause it right there. Because, see, here's the thing. Everybody keeps going, who's going to pay for these reparations? We've technically already done that. Now, just walk with me for a second. In the 2021 appropriations bill that I've got here up on screen, let me make it a little bit bigger so y'all can see. Apparently, there was a section in here under security enforcement and investigations. Now, walk with me. Now, it says here, let me see where is the best to start from. It says, enforced by Department of Security at the discretion of the Secretary of Homeland Security, the provision of such support to federal, state, and local agencies in other law enforcement and emergency humanitarian efforts, the purchase and lease of up to 6,500 for replacement only police type vehicles. Okay. The purchase, maintenance of or operation of marine vessels, aircraft, and unnamed aerial systems. Why is that important? Because a lot of these things transported humans. And contracting with individuals for personal services abroad. $12 billion, of which $3 million shall be derived from the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund for administrative expenses related to the collection of the harbor maintenance fee pursuant to this section, Internal Revenue Service Code, and notwithstanding section of Homeland Security Act, of which $500 million to be available September 30th, 2022. Why is this important? Why is this important? Because this is referring to unaccompanied minor aliens. So I just wanted to read the money part first. Now let me go back to the beginning. For necessary expenses of U.S. Customs and Border Protection for operations and support, including the transportation of unaccompanied minor aliens, the provision of air and marine support to federal, state, local, and international agencies in the enforcement or administration of laws enforced by the Department of Homeland Security. So this was for unaccompanied minor aliens, meaning children that were basically dumped here and have no parents. $12 billion. Yeah. And I remember people on the internet laughing at Black Americans saying, well, the immigrants have gotten your reparations. Yeah. Maybe they're not wrong. Let's get back to the video, and then we're going to go through some research I did in Grok.
And ain't been a slave nowhere up in here. Nowhere. We're the ones that was picking cotton for free. We're the ones that built this country for 400 years for free. We are the women that were being legally in this country for centuries. No one else. How damn disrespectful of you to even talk about reparations for anyone other than us. This is what I'm saying about black folks. We got to stop. We are letting people disrespect our ancestors. For this lady to even open up her mouth talking about reparations for anybody else in this damn country, she must be crazy. Where's Roland Martin? Where's Joyanne Reed? Where's Tamika Mallory? Where all y'all at? Y'all was so mad at Nicki Minaj, but you ain't got nothing to say about this woman saying immigrants deserve reparations before us? That's why I say it's fake outrage. Everyone should be mad as hell about this right here. I wish y'all would. You would never get another damn vote from me ever again.
And not just for slavery alone. There's been several Black American communities, successful Black American communities that have been burned down, destroyed, and the land being distributed amongst white tea people that they enjoy until this day. Virginia, I want to say there's an island outside Virginia called White Man's Paradise. Is somewhere in that area where those white people ran black people out of the island and took their property and redistributed amongst other white people. Read that story. That is a terrifying story. So you have situations like that happened after slavery, where they literally took generational wealth from Black Americans and redistributed amongst white tea Americans. These lands, these property, these resources still exist until to this day, and white tea people benefited off of those properties that they took from Black Americans. So we're not just talking about slavery, right? And Jaya Powell, she's from India. I want to say she's a first generation Indian in America. How dare you talk about immigrants, undocumented immigrants who came into this country with their will, free will. They crossed over into this country, undocumented, free will. They deserve reparations before Black Americans. Why don't you address the caste system that's going on in India right now? Matter of fact, 3,000 years plus, the untouchables, how they discriminate against dark-skinned Indians, the untouchables, Dalit. I think that the group is called Dalit. Why don't you fight against the systems in your own countries? Right? You come over here, you get these positions, and then all of a sudden, you're the voice for Americans? Like, make that make sense.
Yeah, this lady lost her mind, but as you can see, she's been on this. Pramila became the first woman from India to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. She's not even from here, just like a lot of them. But she's in Congress for 7 years, taking over our country, calling for reparations for people that are not even citizens. Not once advocating for Black Americans, but you have Black people going over there to her side, advocating for her people, trying to put their lives and telling other Black Americans to do it too, put their lives on the line for these people. So we have the Black Caucus here. They're also not advocating for Black Americans. They're advocating for her people too. And at the end of the day, like I've been saying the whole time, Black people got to do something with this Black Caucus. All of them need to be lined up and thrown out. They are useless. They are not doing anything for Black Americans, yet they're trying to represent Black Americans in the Black Caucus, in the U.S. Congress. You got them fools up here advocating for her people. You can't make this stuff up. But I digress. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. Tell me what you think about this below. Gotta send a special thank you to our sister Starlet. I appreciate you, Starlet.
Yeah. Now, let's get into this. Okay. Let's see, make sure y'all can see it. Now, let me make it just a little bit bigger. That's a little bit better. Okay. So I said, can you outline the assistance that undocumented individuals have received since 2021 in the United States? Also, can you outline areas of the 2021 appropriation bill that gave assistance to aliens? So it said undocumented immigrants, also referred to as unauthorized or illegal aliens under U.S. immigration law, remain subject to strict federal restrictions, right, on public benefits under the 1996 Personal Responsibility or Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, which is completely ignored. But let's continue. They are generally ineligible for most federal means tested public benefits, including SNAP, which we know they are getting, Medicaid, which we know they are getting, and TANF, which we know they are getting, SSI and ACA. They're getting all of this stuff, right? So since 2021, no major new federal eligibility expansions have been enacted for undocumented individuals. Really? Assistance has primarily come through limited statutory exceptions, indirect support, right? E.g., via U.S. citizen children. This is where birthright citizenship comes in, you guys, right here. In mixed status families, which means the parents are illegal. The children they're considering not, because that's where the just soil comes in. But these parents are not subject to our jurisdiction because they're not naturalized. It never says that just unnaturalized people. If it made a difference and it was just people born, the word naturalized would never appear. Why would you even make a distinction? Why would you have to? Why would you even need the 14th Amendment in the first place? To recognize human beings. Crazy. But here we are. So emergency services or NGO-funded humanitarian aid. NGO. Oh, yeah, those nonprofits, right? State-funded programs or other or certain jurisdictions, and operational response funding for border encounters, right? Below is a factual outline based on federal law programs. So federal direct assistance, right? There's been no major changes since 2021. So emergency Medicaid. See, when you make an emergency, then you got to get it. Reimburses hospitals, providers for emergency services, including labor and delivery, for otherwise eligible individuals. So this is still referring to people that are here illegally, regardless of status. Costs have risen significantly with increased border encounters. Why are you talking about giving people reparations when they literally can walk over here illegally and get everything over people who have done it the right way and got naturalized? By the way, people that have got naturalized, they don't get this. They don't get welfare. They don't get medical. They get nothing. But if they did it the wrong way, they would get everything. I know. Nutrition programs for children, pregnant women, so they're eligible for WIC. All right. These are available to undocumented children and pregnant individuals. So what are we talking about? They're not getting assistance. Public education, guaranteed under Supreme Court precedent, regardless of status. Other limited services, primary preventative care at federally qualified health centers. Again, these are NGOs. Short-term emergency shelter. Again, NGOs. Non-cash disaster relief and limited programs. Again, these are all NGOs. Certain ESG or home funds via nonprofits. So ESG, this is that whole ESG score. This falls under the United Nations. You guys have heard me mention it before. Just type in ESG and United Nations, and it'll give you a breakdown of what that is. Undocumented adults remain ineligible for full scope Medicaid, SNAP, etc. in all states. But under the NGOs is where they're getting the relief. How are you asking for reparations for people that have already been given things? This is all I'm saying. They've not been terrorized. They were escorted in here in 2021. Red carpet rolled out. Stop that. COVID-19 relief and tax credits, American Rescue Plan of 2021 and related 2021 measures, stimulus payments and child tax credit, direct third round stimulus excluded undocumented adults. Okay, but mixed status families, U.S. citizens or qualifying children with an ITIN filing parent became newly eligible under ARPA rules, American Rescue Plan Act. The expanded CTC up to $3,600 per child under 6 provided advanced payments to qualifying families. Undocumented parents could claim it for eligible U.S. children. These are the people that need to be off the soil. And they're still getting this, by the way, because it doesn't end till this year in September. Yeah. So they've been getting this. $3,600 per child. You can't get that as a U.S. citizen, but they can. Not working, by the way. Just saying. So earned income credit. Some undocumented individuals with work authorization, right, via DACA renewals, TPS extensions, or asylum applications could access expanded 2021 EITC rules if they filed taxes. No ACA subsidies or other health coverage expansions for undocumented individuals, but they get emergency Medicaid. So what are we talking about? See the wordplay and the mental gymnastics? It's really crazy. Indirect humanitarian and operational support. So they're getting billions in federal grants, contracts to NGOs, state or locality food shelters, transportation, and case management for migrants released from federal custody, many undocumented. This includes FEMA, Emergency Food and Shelter Programs, HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, and DHS coordination. State and local assistant, approximately 11 to 14 states, right, use state-only funds to provide Medicaid-like coverage, parental care, or limited cash assistance to certain undocumented groups. So please stop telling me they're not receiving money and you want reparations on top of this. These people are not destitute, but Americans are for these people? Really? Okay, let me continue. Parole and temporary status, which is something that Donald Trump has tried to end, right? You've heard that. Expanded humanitarian parole, okay. Areas of the 2021 appropriations bill that gave assistance to aliens. The primary 2021 appropriation bill refers to the Consolidated Appropriations Act, right? It combined full year appropriations with some COVID relief. It did not create new federal public benefit eligibility for undocumented immigrants. PRWORA restrictions remained in place, key relevant areas. So humanitarian and migrant response funding, HHS, right? The appropriations for CBP and ICE operations included support for processing alternatives to detention and coordination with NGOs for released migrants, food, shelter, transportation. So they diverted the money. Remember that $12 billion that I mentioned? That's why I went to the appropriations bill first, so you can see the numbers. This indirectly assisted arriving aliens via operational response. So on one breath, they could say, oh no, we're not doing this because you did it through the NGOs. You people are disgusting. You are just disgusting. Like, it's hard to look at you on screen. It really, really is. COVID relief within the bill. Third round stimulus payments explicitly included mixed status households with qualifying children, means people born just soil, provided indirect family assistance. You did this for people who broke the law. And right now, there are people that are here that are citizens of this country that you are holding hostage their paycheck to fight for people that are here illegally. I can't square it. I cannot square it. Congress, House, Senate, Republicans, Democrats, you're disgusting. You disgust the American people for what you're doing. I don't care. Well, we don't have the majority. You better nuke this. Republicans, grow some stones and get these things passed, because you're spineless right now. And I know why you're holding off, because you don't want the Democrats to one day come into rule and completely destroy the country, which they've already done, by the way, which is why we're here. You have to right the wrongs, and you have to use what's available to you to do it. Grow a spine and fix this, because guess what? Humans out there, putting the Democrats back in charge is not going to help you. They've already told you who they represent. They already told you who they're going to do for. They're going to do for the people who have broken the laws and are here, that will mindlessly vote for them. That's who they support. That's who they paid to come here. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? There's other immigration related provisions. Extension of the Conrad 30 program, J1, physician waivers for underserved areas, benefits legal immigrants. What are we talking about? What have we done? Technical fix. Making compact of free association migrants from Pacific Islands eligible for Medicaid as qualified immigrants. They are lawfully present, not undocumented. Lawfully present doesn't make you a naturalized citizen. Okay? And they keep saying legal immigrants. They're not legal here. They're still not. A separate but contemporaneous bill, the American Rescue Plan Act, right? Sometimes conflated with appropriations. It provided 110 million plus FEMA EFSP specifically for migrant shelters, for people that were here illegally. They set aside 110 million as they walked over veterans on the street and left them homeless. Okay. Flexible state and local fiscality recovery funds, 350 billion total that some jurisdictions used for immigrant related housing and legal aid. So you gave, again, housing to people who were not here. Telling us it wasn't happening. Disgusting. But this is what they did with our money. That's why I had to bring it up. This is gross. It's a gross miscarriage of justice, and the wrongs will be righted. They will be. But you guys, make sure you tune in to the hearing that's going to happen at 10 a.m. Eastern. That's going to be about an hour from now. And usually they say 10, but they may not get started at 10, but still tune in at 10 o'clock anyway to make sure that you're listening in on what happens, because it affects people that the 14th Amendment that was actually written for. It was written for descendants of chattel slavery, myself. And if anybody's out there who has parents that came here the right way, naturalized, legally, it affects you too. We cannot let these politicians destroy our country. They cannot go back to office. That woman, oh, yeah. I want to say, I think she is a House representative. Yeah, she needs to be removed from office. How do you remove her? You don't vote for her. You put somebody else in her place. Redemption Party's here. USARedemptionParty.com. And with that, we will end our broadcast for today. Sorry I didn't get to anybody on open mic, but tomorrow we have Mighty Men Thursday, and it'll be open mic then. So if there's anybody that wants to come up and talk about, what's happening with the Supreme Court, what happened today, right? We'll talk about it tomorrow. Just send me a request. Again, you can email me at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com, or you can send me a direct message on X. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.